Los Angeles, City of Angels, now on fire. The scene of the first major reckoning of President Trump's second term. 3 days of protests as people march against the government's policies on immigration. Increasingly violent scenes with both sides blaming the other. The White House accused protesters of using violent tactics. Critics said Trump's shocking deployment of the National Guard is simply because he wants to create chaos and division.
Y'all told us to come here for opportunity. We came, and then now it's like, oh, you have to leave. But when I was the working class, y'all loved me, right? But now that we're too many people, what's the issue?
With pockets of demonstrations flaring up over the weekend and incidents of clashes between protesters and police, Trump called in members of California's National Guard. But protesters believe their presence and use of tear gas and flashbang grenades is only inflaming a tense situation, with an Australian reporter struck by a rubber bullet while covering the demonstration.
You okay?
Protesters took over and stopped traffic on the 101 freeway, with some throwing objects at officers who had to take cover. With cars set alight later on, Trump and his supporters said this warranted his actions, with some claiming that because people were waving the Mexican flag, that Los Angeles was now, quote, occupied territory. Trump was asked about the weekend's protests on Sunday.
We're going to be watching it very closely, and when they spit at people, you know, they spit, that's their new thing, they spit, and worse, you know what they throw at them, right? And when that happens, I have a little statement, they say, they spit, we hit. And I told them, nobody's going to spit on our police officers. Nobody's going to spit on our military.
It was on Friday that people began to protest after immigration raids in parts of LA, with people put in unmarked vehicles and then driven away in convoys, with military protection also on hand. Crowds began to form and some people tried to stop the vehicles. Protesters marched on a federal building in downtown LA where it was believed many of those detained were being held. ICE have said that their operations in LA this week resulted in the arrest of 118 so-called aliens. That's people who are not legal residents of the USA. For Trump and Republicans, this is what he won the election on, a hardline stance on immigration from the government. For the people of LA, they say this should be a sanctuary city where they are protected by the state of California.
I think that's honestly like what's heartbreaking the most, because they're making it seem like they're really bad people, like criminals, and when they're not, when they're just trying to work hard for their own families.
This is not helping the city. It's actually damaging its wages, because there's a lot of taxes that are paid by undocumented people.
Protesters began clashing with riot police outside the detention center, and this is when the first skirmishes began. With Trump then calling in the National Guard, come Sunday, the crowds outside were now larger, the line of troops and officers bigger too.
They have all the guns. We know they have all the guns. We gotta let people know that we have a right to speak up. We're supposedly in a democracy and have a voice, but we've got to heighten that voice.
The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, called for protesters to remain peaceful, while Senator Adam Schiff said that any violence would only play directly into the hands of those who seek to antagonize and weaponize the situation for their own gain. Words also repeated by the mayor of LA.
But the most important thing right now is that our city be peaceful. And so protests and expressing your, fears, your beliefs, is appropriate to do, but it is just not appropriate for there to be violence. And I don't want people to fall into the chaos that I believe is being created by the administration completely unnecessarily.
While many Democrats criticized President Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard despite not being asked by local or state authorities, the LA police chief said on Sunday that due to recent violence, perhaps the help may be needed after all.
Do we need them?